Hello, fellow Magic players. This is Shadow of the Moon, and today I'm going to be continuing my spooky themed deck profiles for the October month of Halloween with my wife's Magic the Gathering deck, her own personal deck that she has. It is a blue-black mill deck that focuses on using Rexiel and has a heavy take on the H.P. Lovecraftian horror and the lore of the Chithulu, or however you can call it. It's called Cthulhu, but I actually thought Chithulu actually sounded a lot better. This is going to be her own personal deck, so whatever she has in here is personal preference. As long as you understand that, that's cool. I just want to know that, because unlike my deck, which I usually will ask sometimes every now and again for, if you have any suggestions or comments, then that's great. You can leave them, but this is going to be something that's just going to be special to her, and this is her own deck. I will be doing updates on this deck profile every now and again as it grows, because there's a lot of things that she's working towards building on, just like I work towards building on. And I hope that you've been enjoying these deck profiles, and let's continue with the spookiness. So first off, for the deck, we're going to be running 4 copies of Hedron Crab. Hedron Crab has the landfall ability, which will make it to where every single time a land comes into play under your control, you can mill 3 cards off the top of your opponent's deck. That can be really, really annoying. And she is planning on using Hedron eventually and Ruin Crab, but as of right now, we just have Ruin Crab, which still works quite well. We have 3 copies of Jace's Phantasm. Jace's Phantasm is a fantastic card, no pun intended on that one, which has flying and gets +4/+4 as long as an opponent has 10 or more cards in his or her graveyard, which is very, very easy to do with this deck, because this deck mills like crazy and is constantly putting stuff in your opponent's graveyard and using it against you, kind of like a controlling sense, as it were, because it makes it to where, as the H.P. Lovecraft and the Elder Gods lore kind of mess with your mind and control your mind and convince you to do stuff that you don't want to do, this deck will do the exact same thing, which will force you to mill cards off the top of your deck and then use those cards that are in your graveyard against you, because you're going to be having incredible monsters with great high attack powers, 10/10s, 12/12s. I mean, I think one time she even beat me and she had a 20/20, so yeah. Alright, the next one is going to be 2 Merfolk Mesmerists. This is going to be replaced with Hedron Crab as soon as I do get it. So you basically, it's a 1/2 for 2, and you tap a mana to target player, puts the top 2 cards in his or her library into his or her graveyard, so you can trigger that on your opponent. And all in all, is going to be, it's a lot of fun. I know she wants to have a Hedron Crab, but they can be somewhat pricey, especially if you need 4 of them. And then 4 copies of White Up Precinct 6, which gets +1/+1 for each creature card in your opponent's graveyard. So as I mentioned before, the main object of this deck is to be able to put as many cards into your opponent's graveyard as possible, and he's going to make it to where if every single time a creature card is dropped in the graveyard, and if you have multiples of it, it's going to make them 10/10s, 12/12s, like I said before, just overwhelming damage. And that's the purpose of this deck. Then we have 2 copies of Mortivore, which is actually a personal tech. Mortivore works a little bit differently because it does require 2 black mana and 2 mana of any color. So its power toughness will equal to the number of cards in all graveyards, and you can regenerate it. Meaning, if you've got about 25 to 30 cards in your graveyard and you bring him out, he can easily be a 30/30, and he can even be higher than that. And you can also regenerate him, so he's very, very, very overpowered, as you can see. And then we have 2 copies of Consuming Apparition, which is a horror monster. And what this works is it's just like Mortivore, where its power and toughness are equal to the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard. And whenever you cast a spell, each opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a land card, and then puts those cards into their graveyard. So this kind of mills even more into your opponent's deck. And then lastly, she does plan on getting 1 more of these, because this is the main card in the deck. This is kind of like the boss of the deck. This is would be a commander in the deck if you were using commander, which is Rexiel the Risen Deep. Island Lock, Swamp Lock, and then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery spells from that player's graveyard without paying its mana cost. If this card would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead. The idea is it's going to have Island Walk, it's going to have Swamp Walk, and then you're going to be doing combat damage. You can also play target instance, so you're going to be allowed to play those instances and target or sorcery spells that you have, and without having to worry about it. then that's going to be it for the creature types. Let's move on to the actual spells. So first off, we've got 4 copies of Tomb Scour, top 5 cards in his or library in the graveyard, and it costs 1 blue. Memory Sluice. Memory Sluice is just a 1 black or 1 blue. Target player puts the top 4 cards into the graveyard. Amazing. 2 copies of Mind Funeral. Target player reveals cards from the top of his or library until 4 land cards are revealed. Then that player puts all cards revealed this way into his or her graveyard. So if you are not getting mana screwed, or you're not hitting a mana spike, is really going to come in handy. Then we've got Breaking and Entering. She's using it mainly for breaking and entering. I would love eventually for her to get Glimpse the Unthinkable, because it is an amazing card and is actually a better tech card than this. But for now, this is what she has. So target player puts the top 8 cards into his or her library into the graveyard. So that's an easy way to get those in there. Oh, and she does have 4. I don't know why I hit the 2. I didn't see those before. Then we have 1 copy of Traumatize, which is a sorcery. Target player puts the top half of his or her library rounded down into his or her graveyard. So this is a great card, especially if you're later on into the game, because it's going to allow you to put even more cards into your opponent's graveyard, especially if they've lost half of their deck already. Then we've got 2 Keening Stones. Keening Stones, target player puts the top X cards, where X is the number of all cards in that player's graveyard, so this just makes it even worse. And then lastly, 2 Millstones. So 2 Millstones, obviously it's one of the oldest cards. Target player puts the top 2 cards of the library into their graveyard. It's a very old card. I don't know if it's one of the oldest, but it is a very old card. And then lastly, she runs 4 copies of Dimir Guildgate, which eventually would be nice if there is one available that makes it to where it doesn't come into play tapped and she can use it immediately. So this will add blue or black mana. And then she has 10 blue mana. And then lastly, 10 black mana. Alright, so that's going to be it for this deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it. I wanted to showcase this one because this is her favorite deck. And honestly, it's a very fun deck to play against, because it doesn't matter how fast you are. Once it gets going, it makes it to where the opponent's going to have a very hard time keeping up with it. And it's just really hilarious to see half their deck easily get sent to the graveyard, and there's no way to really bring it back and stuff unless you have cards specifically for that. Alright, so that's going to be it for this profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and have a great day. And with that, I'll see you guys next time.